and welcome to Jurassic Park for a minute. We'll be discussing the second Jurassic Park sequel one minute at a time. I'm Brad.
I'm Dave.
And on this episode, we're here to finish out the week with minute 75 of Jurassic Park 3. Before we get into that, David, over at Jurassic-Pedia.com, we've got an article up here for the construction crane, or InGen Construction, which is more of a novel canon entry. We do know there's a division of InGen, which is InGen Construction in the novels. I wanted to bring it up here because when Amanda and Nat are standing in front of this barge on the shore of the river, we've got photos, and I'm pretty sure we've posted them up of the actual barge, and it says InGen Salvage on the side of it. Mm-hmm. And even going back to the lab, and even Eric and his lab coat with the different colours of the InGen logo, we sort of theorise that there may be different divisions inside InGen that look at different things. And I don't think a division of InGen Construction in the film universe is too much out of the question either.
Oh, definitely not. I think that it's interesting that we haven't seen it because undoubtedly they would have had to have a division set solely for construction, especially on stuff like the Pteranodon enclosure on Isla Sorna and the concrete moats and the electric fences and all that stuff, you know? Mm. I mean, they basically cleared jungle through mountains in order to set up that park.
Yeah, yep. Even, I remember there was one marketing photo that came out for Jurassic World, which was a guy holding a hard hat, and it had InGen Construction on it. And then you could see the Kobelco excavator sort of a bit fuzzy in the background and a crane.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I forgot about that. So, yeah, it does kind of make it into the films, I guess.
Yeah, and like you mentioned Nublar before with Jurassic Park, just the scale on building a game when they decided to build Jurassic World is just on a whole new scale, and maybe too big a scale for one company to be in charge of construction. I know that when there's made multiple or large construction projects over here, they have multiple contractors and companies on it to complete. Which makes the whole secrecy thing a whole new nightmare. And even I didn't mention we were talking about the aviary and just the scale of construction there. Just sort of goes back to that line Hammond had in Trespass, where Costa Rican workers were competent people, but they had to be housed and fed, and then later bound to silence. Even though that's Trespasser canon and not really film canon, it makes you wonder. that little worker village. That little worker village we've seen.
I just remembered something, that there's the InGen Construction. There's it says construction underneath the InGen logo on the helicopter from the first movie.
I remember seeing that somewhere. Because they say here in the novel it's actually on the helicopter as well, and I couldn't remember if it's on that Sikorsky or whatever it is helicopter that takes them to the island, but
yeah, it
does.
Is.
Yeah. We'll have to update this entry with a couple of photos, but I just thought it was worth bringing up now, especially in this minute where we get to see that InGen salvage and the barge, and obviously the whole harbour or marina area here on the whole, where something's either being built or trying to be built anyway, with the whole dock.
Mm-hmm. You're not really a mercenary, are you?
I never said I was.
That's true. What are you?
Oh, I'm like a booking agent. One of the guys got sick and couldn't come.
Dave, ready to get to minute 75?
Sure.
As when in minute 74 of Jurassic Park 3, Alan had fired the flare gun at the Spinosaur, lighting the fuel in the water around the animal, and as it roared and ran off, it struck the crane, sending it toppling into the river, along with Paul. As we open on minute 75, the remainder of the crane falls into the water, as Amanda and Eric yell no, and the Spinosaur leaves the river behind, running off into the jungle, never to be seen again. At the 15-second mark, we get a shot of Grant, Amanda and Eric looking out over the river at the burning fire in the crane, thinking Paul is dead. 29-second mark, Paul emerges beside a sunken barge and yells to Amanda that he's not going anywhere. The family embrace and hug as the fire on the river continues to burn behind them. At the 40-second mark, we cut to Grant, standing in the morning light in the jungle, The birds are chirping, and the jungle's waking up. At the 48-second mark, we cut to Paul, Amanda, and Eric sitting by a tree. Paul's asking if they remember the fishing trip they went on a couple of summers ago, when he was putting the boat in the water, and the trailer sank. And they'd call the tow truck, but it got dragged in too. And this ends minute 75 of Jurassic Park 3. Leading straight into 75, the Spinosaur seems to walk past the crane, and for the longest time I thought it swung its tail and hit the crane. That's what ended up sending the crane over, but it sort of just walks past it, whether it's just the CG model not really looking like it's interacting with the crane or what have you, or maybe the damage is already done, but...
well, the shoulder almost kind of bumps it.
Yeah, it sort of just walks past, and we get a couple of quick cuts, which... a little bit confusing.
Yeah,
confuses the scene a bit, but we get the boom falls over as we lose sight of Paul, as it does, and the time and way he sort of falls, it looks like he's fallen directly onto the cab of the crane. But I think again it was just the case of we're going to have the actor fall off, or make the stunt of the actor or the stunt double fall off, and then a second stunt or second set piece of the actual crane collapsing.
Mm-hmm.
Because I definitely don't think they'll both done it at the same time.
No,
that would have been too
bad.
Amanda and Eric continue to watch in horror as Eric tries to go back into the water, but Amanda sort of stops him and holds him back. And we get a very nice CG shot here of that crane surrounded by fire and the Spinosaur walking off away from them into the jungle, which is the last time we get to see the Spinosaur.
Mm-hmm. And not only is it like walking out, it kind of just walks away from the fire and onto the shore into the jungle. But if you notice, the leg is still on fire.
Well, it's weird here. I don't know if it's a goof or it's sort of the fire's there, and in one quick shot it disappears, and then all of a sudden it's back again. Yeah. But yeah, it is on fire. Like it's not even trying to bite its fire enough, and feeling the heat from that fire burning on it.
Yeah. Well, as it walks away, the flame on its thigh gets smaller.
Yeah.
And there's a bit of a goof here that kind of drives me nuts every time I watch the movie, is the sound mixing. I can't remember which species of monkey was used, but there's a species of monkey that was used during or to create the sounds for the Spinosaurus. And it's almost like the sound got a bit isolated at some point, because you can hear a monkey screeching as it's roaring away, you know?
Well, all that would have had to be in post when they've added the sounds.
Yeah.
Because the animals aren't making the sound on set. So yeah, it's been mixed in wrong or something.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they've hit the wrong button. But yeah, that's the end of the Spinosaur. I know it's not the fan favourite and has all its issues, but it walking away here versus what's about to happen to it in the script, I think it was probably better for it just to walk away. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about it. Just leaving like this and never to be seen again.
I don't know. I mean, I've never really questioned it now that I think about it. I mean, it is kind of an abrupt end for the main villain through the film, but I mean, at the same time, I just never really thought it was anything particularly wrong with it, you know? It's kind of just something I always accepted.
Yeah, each time we sort of come across it and that it's same thing, we either leave it behind or it walks off. So it keeps up with its other appearances in the film. It might just be the fact that this is sort of happening here so close to the end. Just trying to think, it's no... You can't compare it to Jurassic Park and sort of us running away while the Tyrannosaurus sitting there fighting the raptors, or even seeing the Rex in the SS Venture, because we know we get it back later on for the end scene. So yeah. Anyway, thunder rumbles as Eric calls out Dad again, and we can still see those flames continue the burning around the crane. And as Amanda's crying and yelling, Paul. You can't leave me like this. A soaking wet Paul Kirby rises from the water behind him like the thing, or the swamp creature, and right beside that InGen salvage barge, which we've been talking about earlier. And we only get a sort of one production image of that barge, but here it is half submerged in the water, and it's got another one of them cranes on it as well, which it doesn't have the boom though, it's only got the canopy there, so probably something that's already fallen off in the River Longo, maybe during the hurricane. Paul answers Amanda's cries from behind, I'm not going anywhere, and that's when the Kirby's hug once again reunited, and poor Grant's just standing there with nothing to do in the just drenching rain as they embrace each other. So again, that's the end of the river sequence too. Like we've discussed where it comes with some of the other things. I think it's one of the high points of the film as well, along with the aviary sequence.
Interestingly, this is the big rain scene, super predator attack, but it comes at the end instead of the middle of the movie. You know, the other two movies, it always came around the middle of the movie. The T-Rex breakout and the two T-Rex attacking the trailers both happen about 1 hour into the movie, and this is at the very end, basically. I mean, the only thing after this is reconciliation and raptors. You know?
Yeah. Well, we mentioned it a couple of minutes ago. It sort of follows a lot with what we get later with Jurassic World and Fallen Kingdom. If you acknowledge that it was supposed to rain before this Main Street fight, and then with the Indoraptor on the roof of the mansion in Fallen Kingdom, they have the big rain sequences at the end. But that's where we transition away from the night and the rain, and we get a sort of happy-looking Grant that. Standing there, we get a sort of a cut of him looking ahead, and the blurry image of what I've always thought was the beach or the ocean through the trees ahead of him. But the more you look at it, you can sort of see, well, now it's the pre-dawn light coming over the hills.
But at the same time, they're pretty close to the beach because look at the soil; it's sandy.
Yeah, I know. It could be either. I don't know. It's just weird that
you get sand into the jungle. Like a couple meters in, so it's at the point that they're walking away from this in the Raptors interlude. Again, it's still sandy soil, and beyond that is the beach. So they're not too far from the beach either.
Yeah. We once again get the birds chirping in the background as early morning in the jungle begins to wake, and we got all those jungle noises return. We pull back to the Kirbys and can see Grant's further away from them, but Paul asks them if they remember when they went fishing a couple of summers ago. He was putting the boat into the water and the trailer sank. The tow truck driver tried to pull us out but got dragged in too. The boat trailer's supposed to sink. Maybe he didn't untie the boat from the trailer.
There are some where you can back the truck up into like a ramp into the water, if it's like a small enough boat. But I mean, yeah, the trailer is made to sink, but it's not made to like pull the car in. I mean, I think he left it in reverse or something.
or he's backed it off the side of the boat ramp and yeah. But the fact the tow truck got dragged in too, like how confident was the tow truck driver that he couldn't hook up and pull us both out without realising that what he was pulling out was heavier than what his tow truck could handle. But the whole time you know that Paul was just sort of over on the side looking like a dog that was in trouble. You head down with those big eyes.
I've been in that position. And then there was one time my car went off. I mean, this is going to be a short tangent. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
But my car went off the road into a ditch, and my car actually came out fine, but it bent the axle a little bit. But the wheels had been on the car. I bought it used, and the wheels had been on the car for so long that the tow truck driver had me. He couldn't get the bolts off the tire to change the one flat tire.
Oops.
So he got out a tire iron, one of those four peg tire irons.
Yep.
And they had me jump on it, and I ended up bending it. So I'm jumping on it, and he sees it's bending, and I pull it, and it's very clearly bent, and no longer. It's like steel too. And I'm like, sorry, man.
Now what?
I know. So he just gave me a ride to the local auto shop, and I guess they probably welded the things off or something.
Nice.
Yeah, I've definitely been in that position.
And maybe if they had more time to work on the script and the film here, we might have got a flashback of it as well, which would have been great to see. But that's minute 75 on the whole. Over at script and novel comparisons, last minute we had Grant climbing the crane when he found that resonating chamber in the camera bag and blew through it. And here, the crane is close to tipping when a single raptor appears from the darkness, chirp barking at the Spinosaur, who simply bats it away. But then more raptors come, and even more soon there are dozens gathering, circling, which this would suggest there's a lot more raptors appearing here than what we actually see in the film. Because we know there's probably 5 or 6, but this is saying over a dozen, or dozens, which would be more than 24, you'd imagine.
Yeah.
Which is a pretty big pack. That'd have to be all of them.
I was going to say that probably every one of them on the island.
But we know from that nesting site earlier where there was 12 or 13 nests. We know that there is a pretty large population of raptors on the island. I don't see the one female laying that many eggs. But Grant stops signalling, and all 3 survivors watch with horrified fascination, knowing their fate is perilous, no matter which side wins, which just takes me back to the Predator taglines and that, whoever wins we lose, and and all that sort of stuff. Which is true. Like, they got the Spinosaur trying to bash them off the crane and all the raptors here. We know, or from the Lost World novel at least, that the raptors can climb scaffolding or climb structures like that, so you'd want to be quiet and hope you didn't get noticed by the raptors when they come in. But looking at his adversaries, looking at the raptors come in, the Spinosaur roars, which, interesting there they call it his, maybe alluding the Spinosaur is supposed to be male, maybe not. The raptors attack. The Spinosaur easily handles the first few, but like ants, they just keep coming. They climb up his back, slicing him and into him, and with their razor-sharp claws. Grant yells, jump, and they